This is the Get Vocal podcast.
So, welcome back to the Get Vocal podcast. Massive thank you very much for the support on the last few episodes. We've had Critch, Brett Ormrod, Brian Rose, and we keep going. Today we've got Stephen. And for those who don't know you, introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Stephen Brown. I think my day job is a senior practitioner for a charity called Empowerment. But I guess today I'm just here for me as Stephen Brown, and I'm just a local Blackpool. I've lived here all my life.
Well, I'm sure that's a big introduction. Big introduction.
We like that. So we always start off the podcast episodes with an important question, and it allows us to open the conversation, I guess. And it is, what does mental health mean to you? And that can be whatever you want it to be. When you think about that term, what does it mean to you?
I mean, for me, I think mental health, whenever I think of mental health, I always think of isolation. Mm-hmm. It's part of my story and not talking. I like to class it as mental well-being now these days, but for years I was always told like I had really bad mental health issues and I didn't speak to people. I was very guarded and ended up in mad addiction just through not looking after my own mental health.
Yeah. In terms of like, so when you said a key term there about you see it as well-being rather than health, why is that? What was the change, or why do you think of it that way?
Well, I'm someone who's in long-term recovery from addiction and the criminal justice system, and after many years, like 25 years of having mental health and not speaking and going to prison, and I've learned that since I've come into recovery, and I've been clean for many years now, that I like to class it as mental well-being because I need to look after myself. You know, I've been clean for many years, but all the struggles and the trauma and them adverse childhood experience that I experienced when I was a kid, it still plays a lot on your mind. So there's certain things that I do every day just to keep myself in check, to keep my spirits going. I need to speak to people, speak about stuff I'm going through, because what I've learned is that back in my old life, I like to call it, I didn't do any of that, and nothing ever changed. I'm stuck in that revolving door.
I was going to say, it sounds like you feel like you've been on both sides of it, as in like you've been on the side where you feel like it's affected you in a negative way, and now you're like the well-being side of like the positive side. Now you're seeing, like saying in your old life as such. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when we talk about mental health, I tried to commit suicide 3 times. So what I would say is that if you know what it's like to get out of a dark place, I don't care who you are, if you can drag your arse out of that dark place, that takes strength.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, I'm proud of you. I don't care about anybody else, but anybody who can drag themselves out of them dark places, and it doesn't have to be suicide. That was just mine. But it doesn't have to be suicide. It can be anything. Family problems, relationships, just isolated, not speaking to people. Sometimes some of the strength it takes to get out of that is like, they're people that inspire me, people that can come through stories of real hardship. Learn to talk about your mental health and not be afraid. Because I guess as men, particularly what I learned as well is like us men, we think we're all macho and stuff like that. And I thought I was a gangster for years, and I literally definitely am not. Do you know what I mean? Like I used to think I was like a wasp or something like that, and I learned that when I come into recovery, I was more like a ladybird. and coming to terms with that kind of changed my life, because I learned to get vulnerable. You know, how do you say as a man that you know, like I kind of grew up in prison, and you don't get vulnerable in prison. Do you know what I mean? Or you get the piss took out of you. And to get out from all that and put all that stuff behind me and sit with other men who are going through hardships or deaths or suicides and get vulnerable with them and cry like them. It's okay to cry. You know, as a man, I've done it loads of times and I still do. And when I learned to do that, instead of thinking it was a weakness for years, I now know that it's one of my strengths.
I think that's something that's one of the biggest things that I was taught. So when I went through therapy 4 years ago, as a kid, I cried. And I'll be honest with you, I cried a lot as a kid. And obviously you cry in front of people and they're like, why are you crying? Stop crying. Especially when you're like growing up 17, 18, you're like, stop crying, you'll be fine. So you kind of have this like filter in your eyes where you kind of go, feel really sad. I can feel the tears coming on, but I'm going to stop myself there.
Yeah.
So I went to see this therapist, and she's a hypnotherapist, and I can't rate her enough. And the whole thing changed my life. But she was like, you need to start crying more. And after that, it's almost like it's like a tap. As soon as you learn it's okay to cry, you just find yourself crying all the time, don't you? It's kind of it's a really big relief. That first cry, it's just like, this has changed my life. And it's like, it allows you to grieve, it allows you to process stuff that's gone on in your life. And then you kind of almost have that, you've got to make yourself a little bit vulnerable in your own mind to allow other people in.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so good about these sessions like Get Vocal and stuff is guys just turn up, they share their problems, and everyone is like, right, okay, let's chivvy along. And
I'm interested. Where do you think that changed for you? Like, can you remember like a particular moment where you realised that it was like, was it someone said something to you, or like a certain moment where you had that preconceived idea that what Jack was just talking about, and then did it just change all of a sudden from one moment or one experience or whatever it might have been? Can you remember it? If so, if that's the case?
Yeah, I can remember it massively. It's probably the biggest turning point in my life, and I think first of all I had to stop taking drugs. So I ended up a prolific offender and heavily addicted to heroin, and couldn't get away from it. Just didn't know any positive people, or I didn't know people recovered from addiction. I'd never met any. I was a counsellor state. You either went to prison, you died, or we didn't see you again. And I went to prison in 2014, and this guy believed in me, and I went on a rehab, and I'd come off loads of other drugs, and I got clean for the first time in my life, and these guys that was on the wing were like peer mentors, kind of like some of the stuff that I do now, that were clean, and I looked up to them, and I was like, how do you do that? And I started following them, and someone said to me, I always thought for years that, when like rock bottom. So my brother was a heroin addict, and he died of anthrax poison laced in the heroin, and we went to the hospital, and we had to switch the life support machine off on him in 2 days. And when I left that hospital, I got in a taxi with my mum, and she said, will you support me? And I said, yeah, of course I will. And on the way home, I hit her for 50 quid, got out, and I didn't see her again for another year. And what happened is I tried to kill myself. I went back to my flat, and I'd had enough, and I thought, I'm going to kill myself. I'd had enough. And luckily I didn't die, so I wasn't very good at that. But I tried that a couple of times, and nothing happened. And then when I just said to you, when I went to prison and I got off all the drugs, but not just got off them, I'd hit a place inside, so it wasn't working anymore. And I knew that when I got out this time, if I didn't change my life, I was going to die.
Yeah.
I was 7 stone when I went to prison, and I looked like... I don't know what I look like. I don't even say, but I was bad. And I was sleeping in the disabled toilets opposite Coral Island, like I'd burnt all my bridges, and I just resigned myself to the fact that I was going to die. And when I come off it and learned that all of them people dying, all of my friends, found loads of my friends dead, overdosed. None of them was rock bottoms. What happened was it had to be inside.
Yeah. You feel like you had to get to that.
I had to it inside, and once I did that, I then became willing to speak to people, and it's like followed other people. So I got kicked out of school in Blackpool as a junior school. I was a really troubled kid, and I was always the class clown, and I got kicked out of school, so no junior school would take me in Blackpool, and I had to go to a special school for 2 hours a day. And there, what they did was they took me to Stanley Park and the Pleasure Beach.
Yeah.
And my thinking back then was, this is great. I wish I'd have got kicked out years ago. And what's happened now, since I've come out, I've had to go back to college, I've had to re-educate myself. And I didn't know all that. I just was a mischievous kid that didn't have any positive role models to follow. And the main people, I grew up in Leighton high-rise flats, and you'd see people drug dealing with new trainers and stuff like that. And for a kid like me, I want to do what you do.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand that working and stuff like that. I didn't get it. I just wanted easy money fast, and ended up in addiction and in a whole world of pain. And when I went to prison and got clean and come out, the biggest thing I did for my life was I looked for some nice properties because I got released to this town and I got released to B&Bs, hostels, where everybody else was using. And guess what happened? I never changed. 20 years that happened. I never changed because there was no positive people around me.
Yeah.
All I ever knew was how to use drugs, steal, whatever.
Or be
Just
around
all them behaviours. That's all I ever knew. So first of all, when we get someone clean in prison, if we're putting them back out and we're putting them back in that same
environment,
nothing's going to change. It didn't for me.
Big roundabout, isn't it?
Yeah, and then finally, when I realised that, there was a recovery house called Jobs, Friends and Houses, and it's for people like me in addiction and the criminal justice system who need a break in life. And you follow other peers. So, because I got kicked out of school, I always thought I was thick. And I have a bit of dyslexic and I struggle with stuff like that. And I always thought I was thick. And I went into this recovery house and there was other people like me. Luckily, there was one guy who I'd used with, I'd been in prison with, and I thought he was worse than me. And I thought, if he can do it, I definitely can. And it was that little bit of hope that someone gave me that helped me change my way of thinking. And once I did that, I started to follow other people. And it wasn't books or college or stuff like that. It was like, what are you going to do? There was loads of us going, right, what we're going to do at college. I was like, I don't know, what are you doing? I didn't even know what I like for my tea. And I still don't. You take me to a restaurant now and I'll be like asking everyone else. Yeah, that's ordered though. That's ordered. It's been made for me, that decision. and it's just like when that stuff happened, I started to make better decisions. And once I stopped taking drugs, my brain started to get better. And I can make some really good decisions these days instead of just shit decisions.
What do you think, like, in terms of overcoming that? The addiction and that kind of thing. What do you think the actual biggest challenge is? Not necessarily like what you face, or what do you think is the biggest challenge for most people? Is it like a common theme? Is it that positive like circle of people around you that, like you say, most people aren't getting? Do you think that's like the biggest challenge that people have got?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like I got out and I'm a Blackpool lad. I'm like quite a funny guy. I like to have humour. I didn't come into recovery to be miserable. I've been miserable for 25 years. So I'll come in here to have a laugh and I want to go on holidays and buy new cars. And I've done all that stuff because I've aimed high. My life was shit for that long. I want the best. And some people say that's arrogant. I think it's like, what if you can get to there, why wouldn't you know?
It's a goal. It's a marker for success, isn't it? So it's a marker of progress for you as well. It's
an absolute goal. So when I found friends that was like, first of all, I had to stop taking drugs. What was the question?
Saying what was the biggest like challenge that you think people face? I obviously what you're saying is the fact that you didn't really feel like you had positive people around you when you came out or when you were in that place. Do you think that's the same for other people that might be experiencing what you have been through? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, one of mine was like people I knew. So everybody I knew who I hung around with wasn't positive. So when I finally realised, and it's an hard thing, and I don't want to get emotional because it takes me back to that time, but at the age of 39, to get out of prison, start attending some peer-led groups, and going back to this recovery house, which was a beautiful recovery house, and that's where I stayed there. I needed a nice quality home because I'd always had shit. And when I got in this nice house, there were tellies, there were fire sticks. I'd never heard of a fire stick. Do you know what I mean? I was like, how do I stay here? And they said, just stop taking drugs, get educated. And I went, right, yeah, I like it. And I started following other people. But when I realised that I had to put myself around new friends, I went home that night and I went to these peer groups and I had no money. I'd been banned from driving. I had nothing when I got out of prison. I got released with 47 quid and I started going to these peer groups, and people, after I started attending them every day, and people started saying, we're going out for food afterwards to a restaurant. I'd never been to a restaurant. Never been. And I was like, I can't come. And they went, we'll pay for you. And I was like, seriously? And then I thought, well, I'm definitely in now if you're paying for me. And it was like, they didn't want any money back from me neither. So I'd be like, I get paid, I get me benefits in a couple of weeks, I'll pay you back. And they said, we don't want anything back. When you're in a position to do that further on, you just help the next person. Pay the favour on. And when they did that, I went back to my house and I cried. At 39 years old, I cried. And something happened to me in that moment where I changed and I thought, this is what friends is.
Yeah.
People who care about me, cared what I wanted. And when I realised, but at the age of 39, to realise you've got no friends is a shit place to be. But for me, it was the best place as well.
Because that's where...
Because then I started saying, this is what friends are. And I've never left peer-led groups in my life since.
Wow.
Love that.
So, just going back to what you were saying before, we have had I think Andy, when Andy was on, he was talking about how when the state of, I think his was the army, but in prison, when they release you and stuff, and you were saying about that, last time you came out, did they try and reintroduce you back into society? Did they give you kind of like updates of what's gone on or how your mental health is, or do they just kind of go, get on, fight, survive kind of mentality? Do you think there's possibilities where stuff really needs to improve because you're on your own and you're kind of back into society?
Yeah, listen, like I'm really passionate, and if anyone follows me, they know that I'm really passionate about trying to make changes in prison, which is difficult. When I was released from prison, I was released homeless all the time. It didn't help because I was addicted to drugs, so my first thought was go and get some drugs.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like, let's get some stable accommodation. That wasn't my first thought. I wanted to go straight to the off licence I deserve. And I didn't understand that just sent me back into a vicious cycle. So that's kind of what I did.
How many times have you been in?
In prison?
Yeah. Like in and out. So like, obviously, if you're saying about reoffending every time, how many times? Like,
yeah, literally 30. I was like prolific offender, so I went to prison. I went to Lancaster Farms in 1997 for the first time, and my last prison sentence was, I got released in 2017, beginning of 2017, and since I got released and I talked about my mental health and I met new friends, I've never drank alcohol or used drugs since. I've never committed an offence. I've got a really good job. I work for a charity called Empowerment, and part of one of Empowerment's values is kindness, right? And I always remember loads of people who were trying to be kind to me,
like back then with the meals and that kind of stuff.
And the biggest thing that Empowerment do for me is we encourage all our staff and volunteers to talk about our mental health and challenge that shame and stigma, because it's all right to talk about our mental health. And our boss, Mike, is our CEO, Mike Crowther. He talks about it all the time, and we just want everyone to talk about that, because by other people talking and you saying, I've been in that situation, you help me and I help you.
Yeah, we've found that a lot on the podcast, haven't we? Where we're saying like it takes one person. I think it's cropped up in pretty much every single episode that we've done.
The first person you help, and then
and then it's just
opens
it's a snowballing effect, isn't it? Like it just takes someone to take the ownership to say, look, I'm going to start talking to someone else. We've done it. We started doing it. You're doing it now, and you've even had experiences of doing it. And then all of a sudden, like, just influences a small little group of people. It's not something that you're going to affect like millions of people just from one conversation. But if you help one person, then you then pass that on to however many people. That's where I think the real change is happening. And with stuff like this, with those conversations that you have in there. But what kind of like specific things do you have, like meetings similar to the Get Vocal? Do you have like certain sessions that you put on, or what are you involved in that like encourages that as such?
Yeah, I mean, so I work for a charity called Empowerment, and we have two sites. So we have one in Bisping, and we have the Lived Experience team. So Empowerment is the Lived Experience team. They run the Lived Experience team, which is me and 26, 27 other full-time people who are like me, that have gone through their own struggles, whether it be domestic violence, criminal justice, mental health, homelessness. They've been through all that stuff, but they've come out the other end of it, and we're employed for that. We're employed for our lived experience. Some people say it's like a lived experience you wouldn't want to buy. It's done me all right, if I'm being honest with you. It's done me all right. It's all I had. Do you know what I mean? So I had to work on that. Do you know what I mean? And we're in Blackpool working with the most chaotic, so the homeless, the people with multiple complex needs. We're out there navigating, hand-holding some of them to appointments, picking them up from prison. And then you have the other site in Bisping where they have like Elliot's place. So young Elliot lost his life through suicide suicide in 2020, and they have a men's group. They're trying to get young lads to talk about that and help each other. And we also have Solace. So Sam Southern's the woman who runs a suicide group in there as well. She lost her husband to suicide, and she was left to deal with that. But she's talking about it and making people aware. Do you know what I mean? Me personally, for my own recovery, I attend mutual aid meetings, and I have done ever since I've got out. I did like one every day for about 2 years. So every night I needed to, I had nowhere else to go, me, when I got out. So I went to them, and that's where I built up new friends, and it stood me in good stead.
Yeah.
I still go to them now.
Yeah, and I think what you're saying from past experiences, I think obviously, sadly, there's people that maybe don't or aren't able to go through what you're going through now. But I think your experience of then showing you're now the beacon to people that might be going through it like you had back in like in your old life, as you say. So I find that quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, how easy is it to kind of forget the world around you? Like when you're so blinking and that's all you want, like how easy is it to forget the world? Can you go into these states and for say 3 or 4 days, nothing else ever happens, and but is it hard? Is it how hard was it to kind of change that way and
I mean,
get the days back as such? Sorry.
Yeah, I always said I would. It's impossible. It's impossible for me to stop using drugs and change my life in my own town. I always said that, and then what happened was I'd go to different parts of the country, and guess what happened? Same shit. Took myself with me, didn't I? So what happened when I got out, and actually Blackpool helps me because I work with some of the most chaotic people, and sometimes some of the things they're doing I remember doing myself.
Yeah.
And it's like keeps me grounded, that knows that when I do stuff like that, when I start taking drugs or drinking, I'm not like your average person. I don't stop taking them, and then bad things happen. Do you know what I mean? So I've learned to stay away from that and get positive friends and find out what I like and go on holidays and new stuff. I have a little 4-year-old girl that I've had since I've been in recovery. She doesn't know anything about me. She doesn't know that I've ever been to prison. She doesn't know that I've ever been on drugs. You know what I mean? As long as I come and do stuff like this, as I just said to you before, Mike, all the way through my addiction, and the main thing when I spoke about my brother dying early and I tried to commit suicide, my mum had to deal with all that. So not just me being in prison, my brother, and she went through some horrendous stuff as well when she was younger. And part of the reason that when I come into recovery, I knew I'd hurt my mum for years and not supported her and took money off her and blah, 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 blah. And I knew I had to make that right. And over the last 7 years, I've been able to do that. I've been able to help her pay her debts off. I've been had Sunday dinner with her every week for the first few years and built that relationship with my mum. And when I was 2 years clean, she said to me, "I'm really proud of you. I don't have to go to bed now expecting a phone call from the police that you're going to be dead."
Yeah.
And I cried my eyes out. I was like, shit, man, the damage that I've done to not just my mum, that's just my mum, and she's the closest thing to me.
Yeah.
So by doing that, you know what I mean, I've like helped her on at the end of her life. And I just told you earlier, I've just come from the intensive care unit where my mum's just nearly died. She's been in a coma for a week, and I've been in a world of pain.
Yeah.
And what I've realised over the last week is, particularly, I've started staying in more. Not wanting to go out. People piss me off anyway, so I struggle with that. So I don't want to go near anyone. And what I've done over the last week especially is I've started to make more of a conscious effort to go and do stuff. So we went to, my friend had a 40th birthday the other night. We all went to West Coast. I did all that stuff for years, and it was amazing, speaking, talking, and I pulled back a bit. And especially when you're going through your own stuff.
Yeah.
My mum, I don't mind saying this, I'm a mummy's boy.
Yeah.
She travelled the country in prisons for me. She sent me money, and without her, I don't know where I'd be today. So to have your mum in intensive care has always been like one of the things in my conscience that I thought, shit, man, I don't know if I'll cope if I lose my mum.
Yeah.
And that's where I've been in the last week. I've been like down, man. Every time I've gone to that hospital, it's been like, now her organs are failing. Like, Like, I'm in agony. I can't cope with this shit. So I'm struggling.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, this is my fucking mum. I'll do whatever. Like, I've never prayed some more in my life. Do you know what I mean? And tonight I've gone there. She's had this wonder drug, and I can't thank the NHS enough, especially in the ICU. They've kept her awake, and I've just come from here tonight, and she's just opened her eyes. Not been able to speak to her yet because she's got tubes all over her, and
That's a sign, though, isn't it?
do you know what I mean? But what I've learned is that I don't go home and overthink that stuff. Today, if you want to talk about mental well-being, for me, when I drove back from the hospital here, some couple of dance tunes come on, like old Zone dance tunes. And for the first time in a month, because that's how long she's been in hospital, I were pretty much dance volume on full blast. I started smiling, I was happy, and I was listening to the music. And I love that stuff. I do a lot of that stuff. People say they go and meditate. I like to listen to music when I'm driving to work in my car.
I was gonna ask you, like, what sort of things do you like? What helps you when you're feeling like that? Because obviously you're self-aware, you're realizing that's happening because you're saying it obviously to us now. Is it music? Is it like, because it is different for every person. The people that we've interviewed, it's completely different for every single person. That even in this room, it would be different. So yours are dance tunes, yeah?
Well, it was tonight. It just come on.
Oh, is it different every time?
It's different every time. Tonight it was dance tunes because it was the first time I felt there's a bit of hope and my mum's surviving.
A bit of uplifting.
Do you know what I mean? But like, I went to a peer group the other week on Saturday. Well, I thought we was going to have to switch the life support machine off on her, and it was the same thing I had to do with my brother, and I'm thinking, I can't do that to my mum as well. That'll kill me. And what happened was I went to this meeting, this peer-led meeting, and I spoke to this guy who I know's just gone through the same stuff. He's been really poorly, really ill, and I come in and I had tears in my eyes, and he went, "Are you all right?" And I went, "Not really, mate. No, my mum's in a coma." I went, "What about you?" He said, "Not really. I'm pissing blood."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I was like pulled into the side. Me and him had a chat, and like he's been through an horrendous time. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm saying in that moment is there's him that's just nearly died. There's me that's losing my mum. We on the break after that meeting, we went and spent some time together, and I felt better.
Yeah.
And he felt better because he was helping me and I was helping him without us even knowing it.
Yeah, I love that.
Do you know something? There's two things you just raised, like you mentioned then. Like for me, music's a big one. Like for my job,
same.
Being a DJ, like I've always found, so especially pre-COVID, I was kind of not falling out of love with it, but I'd go to a gig and I'd be like, I don't know how to do this. I'm not doing how to do this, but my anxiety was all over the place. And then somebody would request a tune and you're like, do you know what? Yeah, I will play that because I know that will trigger me and that'll bring me back up. And
that is a banger.
Yeah, proper Kevin and Perry moment.
Yeah.
All I want to do is do it. But I've got songs as well where I know I can't listen to.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that will send me back under. But music it's something about frequencies and the frequency that you get kind of triggers, and especially for like brown noise with neurodivergence, that's one way you can calm down. But another thing you've just said there is just my journey with all this, and when I've kind of come out the other side of it, is the reason why we started our first podcast is I get so much solace by helping other people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest things.
It lifts you up, doesn't it?
Like last week, 100% last week I was in the pits, properly in the pits. Someone came to me and said, "Don't feel too great." So I then went, okay, there's an hour. I'll have an hour you can have an hour of my time, I'll have an hour of your time, we'll just talk. And after that, I was like, do you know what? That's made me feel so much better. And that's why these groups are incredible. Like I come down on a Monday and I used the Get Vocal group as therapy for myself. Like I use this so much because you turn up and I know no one there. So there's no stigma for me because you go into an empty room, but not an empty room. Sorry, we have got people coming.
Just you go into
yeah. But you go into thanks. But you go into a room with people. Everyone's in the same boat, and they go, right, we can help you with this, or I can help you with this. And like you said, like going into these peer-led groups, it's incredible what comes from that.
Yeah. I mean, Brett asked me to come and do this like last week sometime. I knew I was going through all this stuff, but like you just said then, some people go like, yeah, like, thanks for coming. I'm like, listen, it's cool, man. I need this stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm coming for me. I know that I'm going to talk about some real life stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I've learned it's the only thing and the best thing that I've ever learned. It's all right to talk. In fact, it's better than all right. It changed my life.
Yeah.
When I talk about this stuff and you don't see me on the street and I'm going through shit and I go, yeah, everything's all right. Everything's all right. Everything's all right. Because what I said for many years, and it's a horrible thing to say, and I still do it a lot. I know. Bullshit. I don't know much. Do you know what I mean? And what I've learned is when I started talking and with guys, you know, and you just said earlier that you'd been through therapy and stuff like that. When you say stuff like that, for me, I relax. I sit in a chair and I think I'm in the right place.
Yeah.
And with other guys who have been through maybe not the same stuff, but similar stuff, it's always mental health or other stuff. We're all talking about it.
That I know thing. It's just honestly,
Yeah.
I used to do that. So you need to go to the doctor. I know. I'll be fine. I'll get on with it. You're not right. I know I'm not right. What am I going to do about it? I know like that, and you've triggered something there. That's like a long-term memory that I know is kind of everyone must have heard that when I've said it to them, and like when you actually do know, you stop saying it.
It's
You
mad.
actually don't know anything, really, do you?
It's mad. When my brother passed away, and I was told that I had mental health problems, and I was on all these antidepressants. I was on like shitloads of tablets I didn't even know I were taking, and I was taking all these antidepressants throughout prison and everything. Guess what happened when I started to talk to people? I got out. I come off the drugs. I've never took mental health medication since. I've never been depressed. I don't like class myself as someone who I do suffer with mental health. I'd be wrong if I say that because sometimes I have shit days and sometimes I want to stay in. Everybody's mental health's different. You can have severe. It can be not as severe.
That's the thing. Everyone's got it, haven't they? It
Yeah, I
depends
think
on what-
everyone's got it at some point. We can all get down on ourselves. And like when I said earlier, if you have the strength to pull your arse out of that, do you know what I mean? If you can pull your arse out of it and start to do some positive stuff, and I get it's difficult sometimes. You know what I mean? I have a really good job, right? And I get up in the morning and I listen to my mum for years. She worked in a care home and she used to hate her job. It's like, oh my God, I've got to go to work. I don't have that.
You feel
And one of my
privileged,
friends
don't you?
said to me in recovery, if you can get a job where you get up in the morning, you love doing it, and you're out there helping people, which is fundamentally for me what I'm about.
Mhm.
You know, I did loads of damage to this town and caused loads of chaos. And one of the things that I like to do is give back.
Yeah.
And that's not in work. So in work, I can go and we can help people and all that, but I get paid for that.
Yeah.
What
Paid
do,
hobby.
what do I do out of work? So I attend peer-led groups.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
see other people. You might see a guy come to his first ever peer-led group, yeah, broken, like not much hope, and he starts speaking, and then guess what happens? You see the light switch on in his eyes, and I think, holidays, cars, I love all that stuff, right? But if you see stuff like that, that's something that lights my spirit up.
Yeah,
It's just something that lights me up inside to see someone come from being depressed or a bit broken to start attending some groups, going to football, watching football on telly, speaking about stuff. You're like, this kid stands a chance.
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say, what with these groups and like obviously Get Vocal and the charity that you work for, what do you think like the biggest challenges are that they face? Is it getting people there in the first place? Because I know we've spoken about that in terms of the barrier that people feel as if it sometimes can be quite a big jump. You know, if someone's listening to this thinking, I don't know if I could even make that step to go to a group or come to Get Vocal, for example, like what do you think the biggest challenge is for the groups in particular, not necessarily the people?
I mean, if you want me to be really honest with you, what was mine? So when I first got out and I didn't understand the importance of peer-led group,
Yeah.
I didn't understand it. I had no car and people would say, yeah, you go to these groups and get a bus. I used to think, get a bus to a group? I'm not doing that. Luckily for me, I did do in the end, but luckily for me, this man and wife who I knew, they're one of my best friends these days, they like, I just got out of prison person, and they was like, they got a car, and they started, like I said earlier, they started paying for me for food afterwards, and found to speak. And what happened was they picked me up in the car for 2 years and took me to meetings all over the country. So I didn't just keep it to Blackpool. Once I started getting more confidence, I was all over the country, and I was out talking, and in the groups that I go to, people ask you to come and do stuff like this, and then other people identify or don't, and that's how we build relationships and take phone numbers and support them. You know what I mean? And then give them your numbers, and if they ring you at night time and they're struggling with stuff, then it's like, well, yeah, I've been there. Here's some suggestions.
Do you think it was that? So that what I'm getting from that is like, do you think it wasn't as accessible, like you're saying about some people might, come out of prison, for example, without a lot of money or no transport or things like that, and they, like you say, come to a group or come to wherever it is it the accessibility that's the issue, you think?
Yeah, I think, listen, listen, if you, hands in the air, if you are a male or a female, it doesn't matter. If you've got the courage, first of all, to attend a peer-led group on your own, well done.
Yeah.
Well done. Just to get there and challenge your head on, I won't know anyone, oh my God, will he even like me? All that shit that we think about. I was quite lucky. I went in a recovery house and there was other people who was in recovery, and I knew a few of them, and I just jumped on the bandwagon with them. Do you know what I mean? But I do see other people, and what we do is we jump in the car.
Yeah.
I have a really good job, me, right? We work 9 till 5 and we have policies and procedures. But guess what? If there's a guy that wants to attend a mutual aid group or a peer-led group and it's at 7 till 9 at night, I'll go and take him.
Yeah.
I'll pick him up. I'll take him to the meeting. I have to get him some food.
I have to
get him some food as well, because
Yeah.
someone said to me years ago, once you're in a position, you need to do it.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty good at the beginning. I thought, I'm getting everything here. It's cost me big in the end. But that's cool. I'm able to do that. And just, it was a few weeks ago, I took a guy to McDonald's and got him a burger. He had no money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And just to be able to get him a burger and sit him down and calm him down, because he was quite irate, was a nice thing to do. Do you know what I mean? And
I love that.
Taking people somewhere when they're not used to going to restaurants or swimming, like I said today, a young lad in a sauna. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's next level stuff to me. If you've never done stuff like that, if people didn't do that for me and they showed me that this is the possibilities, you can re-educate yourself, you can go back to college, because I was always one of them that I can't do that. You know what I mean?
That fills you up, I guess, doesn't it? Like, you had that before, so now the experience, you're passing that on that favour, which I think is cool.
I mean, I've listened to like what you've said and stuff. There's a lot of help for people who are in the situation, or there's more and more help. Where do you think we're at in society, in the community, for people who are kind of wrapped in it? So like the families, the children, because let's be honest, they will have seen a lot as well. And what we're doing in society and communities to try and correct that. So like kids who have obviously come up in the same kind of childhoods or been around drugs, or wives or girlfriends.
So maybe not directly affected.
Yeah, what's being done there?
It's a difficult question. Do you know what I mean? If I be honest with you, Blackpool, we have a rough time for drug-related deaths. Our drug-related deaths are through the roof. Yeah, and what I like to say about that is, on the flip side to that, our recovery network is massive. Literally massive, but you have to find it. And I didn't know it existed, but it's literally massive. There's peer-led groups every single night in Blackpool, do you know, and the organisation I work for does other stuff like that, but it employs us lot who are usually a voice for the people who don't think they have one. Do you know what I mean? How do you make services better? It's not by being sat at the top of the ivy tree and making decisions for someone who's sleeping in a tent, because you don't know what it's like to sleep in a tent. It's about asking the service users, what do they think? Why are they not engaging? And for me, the lived experience is a voice for that. And that comes with what you just said then around families and loved ones, mums, your nan, you've got an 80-year-old nan whose son's stuck in addiction. How does she deal with that? And then, you learn that there's Al-Anon, there's families groups for mothers and nans to sit and speak to each other. And I've witnessed that. I've witnessed the power of 2 women that have never used drugs or been in prison or addicted or had mental health, but they've dealt with a son. or the life or the daughter, and then you see two women speaking about it, and that's how they peer-led stuff.
I like that.
It's all about kind of giving the voice to the voiceless, isn't it? I suppose.
Absolutely.
I think that's one of the biggest things that we're starting to see in this country at the moment, and especially Blackpool. And it's really heartwarming to see the rise of, like you said, these peer-led groups, because for years there's been voiceless people who just live their life. They live in depression, they live in addiction, they live in everything we've discussed. But slowly but surely they're getting a voice. And they're changing their lives, and they're getting out of a depression, or they're getting out of addiction, or they're getting out of these crime-related gangs. But see, the work that everyone's doing in this town is something to be really proud of. And not a lot of it is mentioned, and we kind of all. Blackpool gets a really tough time across the board. The press, people in it who don't see all the good about it. But if you take a step back and look at Blackpool, we are doing a lot, and especially the trust, especially. Where you work, and it's incredible. I take my hat off to you if I had a hat.
Yeah. We've done stuff with we've done stuff with Blackpool Football Club over the years, and we've worked together. And one of the things on the lived experience team is that we are. And I don't want to blow my trump here. Yeah, I do. The lived experience team in Blackpool is miles ahead of others. And I've travelled the country and been and seen others. And it's like, how long have you, I went to one place and there was this girl and I said, how long have you volunteered for this company? And she was like, 2 years. And I was like, 2 years? How many of you have got jobs? And they went, no, they don't employ us. And I was like, what? Like I'm really fortunate that I'm in a really good position where our charity employs people like me. So if I see someone and he gets out of jail and he's turning his life around and he's making positive steps and he wants to re-educate himself and then he wants a job, and it might be 2 days a week. Because when I first started, I'd never had a job in my life. I worked at Dainty Street Factory when I was 17, and you know what I mean? I lost that job. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't for nicking the sweets. And it's like when we see people like that, how do we make our lived experience team better? It's by our volunteers and people who are coming in, and they're our next generation. Like I've been clean for years now, and I can talk about how services was for me like many years ago. But what about like the new people who have faced barriers since COVID come into place? I can't talk about stuff like that. I've seen it and I work with it, but people's personal experience of barriers that they've faced with services through lockdown is like next level stuff. And I was dead lucky that we were shouting about people being released from prison, and we got quite a lot of money to employ some people that were like me, and we have my DBS is quite colourful. Yeah, so like if I'm going for a job and I bring my DBS, I usually need to bring it in a rucksack. And I remember going for my first job with my CEO, and just first time I met him and I bought this DBS, and he was like, you know what I mean? It's like my DBS isn't colourful, so on paper I don't look pretty. Put me in the workforce and I've just progressed. I've got better jobs. I'm always trying to find something new, conferences, or I'm always thinking of new things to do and ways we can help people. And sometimes I book people. Do you know what I mean? What about this?
I think, do you know something? I was thinking about, I was on social media yesterday. I think that's one of the biggest things, especially with people who are in jail or people who've got addictions. We write them off. As a society, we write them off, don't we? We don't believe that people can, like yourself, change. And I think that's a big one where you say the DBS, that piece of paper, in theory, it highlights what your wrongdoings.
Yeah.
But everyone can change, can't they? And that's, I think,
like a tag.
Yeah, these tags, these stigmas, mental health, addiction, crime. You need to look at the person inside, and if they want to change, you've got to just take that under the wing and help them progress, haven't you? And I think it's what you're doing is incredible. I want to kind of start. We're not going to start wrapping things up, but if someone's listening to this and they're either struggling with addiction or struggling with the mental health, or probably got both as it's a root cause, or they've turned to drugs because they've got the mental health, or vice versa, what advice would you give them?
I mean, for me, I found people who've been for the same stuff as me. Do you know what I mean? So if like I broke my leg, I need a surgeon. Or do you know what I mean? If I want to be good at football, I'd like to speak to a good footballer. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I like to, any situation that I'm going for, I like to look at people who's been through that situation and come out the other end of it, because I'm like, how did you do it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm in agony here. Do you know what I mean? I think I'm going to lose my mum. Who do I want to speak to? I want to speak to someone who's lost their mum.
Yeah,
How have you dealt with this? How have you done it? Do you know what I mean? Because I think I want to need that help. And I guess if you're stuck in a dark place and you're trying to find a way out, if you can find a little bit of courage and you can, you know, go online. If you haven't got a laptop, you can go to the library, or, you know, there's this Blackpool Football Club's a good source of information. Go to on Empowerment website. We've got loads of different stuff that people are doing. You just have to look for it. And it is hard to get your arse down to one of them when you already feel like no one gives a shit about you. And when you get into them, people do give a shit about you. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't get out, you know, I didn't get out of prison and then go to like the disabled toilets and make loads of friends.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I had to find new friends, positive friends. Do you know what I mean? And when I first went to college years ago, I said, yeah, I'll do health and social care because another 10 people were doing it. You know what I mean? I didn't like health and social care. I just went because they were going. And the day, I had a good key worker and she's called Kath and I love her. And the day that I was going to college, and this is me personally with mental health, a lot of that comes with self-doubt. So I can speak confident now and always, but trust me, my self-doubt is sometimes overwhelming. Do you know what I mean? And that day I got up to go to college for the first time. I've already got that shame and stigma of I've been in prison all my life. I've been an heroin addict. What am I going to do at college? Because I thought rich people went to college. Do you know what I mean? I thought like you must be pretty privileged if you got to college. That's just how I thought. It's a bit mental. And then when I got up that morning, I went, I'm not going. I just went, I'm not going, fuck it, I'm not going. I can't. Anxiety, I won't go, people judging me. And he had this key worker and she said, calm down. And they had another key worker and he'd been like, he was the same as me, but he'd like finished head boy or something in the college. And he went, look, I know them all at that college. I was the head boy. And I thought, I need him in my corner. He went, I'll come to college with you and I'll sit in the class with you for half an hour till you feel comfortable. And he taught me down and I went with him. Guess what happened after half an hour? I started speaking to someone and I said, I'm all right now. I went to college, and that's happened throughout my recovery. My self-doubt and by other people pushing me and spurring me on, I've managed to keep my arse.
Incredible.
Love that.
Incredible.
He said some good stuff.
I'm going to ask you one more question. One more question, and it's a big one. What is the long-term goal for Stephen Brown?
Oh, God. I don't know. Listen, when we talk about long-term goals, I have a really chaotic job. Yeah, so I'm dealing with a lot of chaos.
What's the long-term goal with your career then? Let's go to that one rather than yourself.
So me at the moment, I just focus on like new cars, holidays, and I go on a lot of holidays, and I need that for a break. I like to switch my phone off and I go off.
I bet.
Do you know what I mean? And someone said it to me, and I'm like, I don't know. I know that I will make things happen. You know what I mean? And it's like someone said to me, like, oh, do you want to get another job, higher paid job? I think you'd be pretty hard pushed because people have tried to ask me to go and work for them and they give me more money. And my answer always has been, I don't want to. The job where I work, we have flexible working, you know, all that stuff that I've just gone through with my mum. If I work 9 till 5 in a biscuit factory or Aldi or something like that, my work's just said, listen, you do what you got to do, mate. If you want to have time off, we'll pay you. You know what I mean? And I'm one of them that I can't sit at home. You know what I mean? While stuff's happening, I can't sit. So I've been going to work and then hospital visiting times at 2:30, so I've just left. So my work is really flexible, and the understanding of people with mental health or addiction that we come with a lot of baggage. Do you know what I mean? And just... I love working at my job at the moment, and what I want to do is I just want to keep progressing. I started off on 2 days a week, and then navigator. Then I ended up getting a senior practitioner job where I'm able to line manage other staff as well as all the caseload and just learn. You know what I mean? I haven't got any big dreams because I've got what I want at the moment. I've got an amazing car. I love my holidays. Do you know what I mean? I've got a little girl. I've got a family. I've got a house.
Mate.
I don't want for nothing. I've got money in the bank. I'm pretty happy. But I know that I always want more. You know, when I said I took loads of drugs and I always wanted more and more and more. That
That's
hasn't
not
gone
what
away.
Yeah.
That hasn't gone away. If
That
you look
dopamine, isn't
if
it?
you look on my Facebook, on my car history, you'll be like, I've lost a lot of money on buying cars. I went back to like Boy Racer times because I missed out on it all. Do you know what I mean? But it's all right. It's all right, that stuff. I had money to do it, and it gave me loads of confidence. I always thought rich people, when I was in prison for many years and watching telly, I used to see people swimming with dolphins, right? And it was a bucket list thing that I thought only millionaires can do. Guess what happened when I got a passport? I went to Mexico and I swam with dolphins, and it was quite cheap. I think it was 100 quid. Back then, I thought, I will never swim with a dolphin.
How is it?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Swimming with
Did they
dolphins.
pick you up
was-
and everything?
yeah, two of them come behind you, pick you out the thingy. It's pretty mad. Do you know what I mean?
100 quid as well. Sound that.
And I've done like things like that
You'd be
I
hard
would
pressed to
never
look at me.
dream. Do you know what I mean? And for a local council estate kid who grew up with loads of trauma and should be dead, to travel the world and do all that stuff, I have to pinch myself daily. You know, when I just said I'm driving down here listening to some music before, I was pretty happy. I knew I was coming here to do something and I had to pinch myself. It's like, what a privileged position for, first of all, Brett to get in touch with me. He knows a little bit about me because we've done some work with him. What a privileged position for someone like me to be invited to my local football club, yeah? I love Blackpool. I'm all about Blackpool, and if we can help Blackpool in any way, I'm up for it, no matter what. So to come here, I have to pinch myself. Never mind the holidays, just driving around this town and keeping my own mental health in check. I love it.
Love it. Incredible.
I've got no other words.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Better than Brian Rose's, that one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Don't show him that.
Don't worry, he's not. He's training for a camp.
Yeah.
You're not going to miss out on his partner. So thank you very much for whether you've watched it or you've listened to it. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed, like it, subscribe, and keep in touch with the next one. See you soon.